Puppy breath and tiny paws. Incoming. We're diving into everything you need to know about those adorable Havanese pups, especially how to make that first week at home a total win.
We're talking more than just surviving puppyhood. We're talking about setting you up for years of happiness with your Havanese.
Exactly. And it all starts with understanding what makes this breed so unique.
Well, they're known for being these super affectionate, cuddly little dogs.
Yeah, like walking teddy bears.
Pretty much. But their small size, we're talking potentially under 10 pounds, even when they're fully grown, that actually changes a lot about how we approach, well, everything.
So it's not just about cuteness overload, it actually impacts their care.
Absolutely. Puppy-proofing, for instance, takes on a whole new meaning when you've got a tiny explorer who might see a chewing hazard where we see, like, a completely harmless object.
Okay, so let's talk hazards. What should we be looking out for when puppy-proofing for a Havanese?
First things first, those electrical cords. They're like magnets for teething pups, especially with those little legs keeping them close to the ground.
So securing those is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And it's not just cords. Anything dangling, think curtains, tablecloths, even those headphones you always leave on the couch, those need to be out of reach too.
It's like baby-proofing, but with an extra dose of everything goes in the mouth awareness.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of things that shouldn't be chewed, let's talk about plants.
Asking for a friend who may or may not have a jungle growing in their living room?
You know it. So many common houseplants are toxic to dogs, and some of the worst offenders are lilies, philodendrons, even those holiday poinsettias.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize poinsettias were an issue.
They can be, so better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
If you're unsure, it's best to relocate those plants while your puppy's still learning the house rules.
Makes sense. So we're checking for anything at their level that could be a choking hazard too. Things like, I don't know, buttons, hair ties, those tiny game pieces that always go missing.
You name it. Those seemingly harmless items can be super dangerous if swallowed. And these pups are smart. They'll find ways to get into things you wouldn't even imagine.
Okay, so we're puppy-proofing like pros. What about those essential supplies? What do we absolutely need before that little fur ball walks through the door?
Before you get lost in the sea of adorable puppy stuff, let's talk about the MVP, the crate. Now, before you picture some scary puppy jail.
Hold that thought, because we are going to do a deep dive on crate training a little later, I promise.
Sounds good. But yeah, a crate is essential, and we'll talk about why in a bit.
All right, crate check. What else is on the must-have list?
Well, those tiny teeth we talked about. They need an outlet, so stock up on chew toys that are specifically designed for puppies.
So nothing too hard that could hurt those little chompers.
Right. Think soft rubber, plush toys, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we're protecting those puppy pearly whites. What about food? Should I just grab any old bag of kibble?
You'll want to stick with puppy-specific food, at least for now. Those little tunnies need different nutrients than adult dogs.
Makes sense. So, new puppy starter pack. Safe and secure crate, check. Puppy food, check. An arsenal of soft chew toys, check.
What about taking this little fluff ball for walks?
Ah, yes. The glamorous world of puppy walks. You'll need a lightweight leash and collar, or even a harness if you prefer. Lightweight, got it. Is that because they're so small?
Exactly. We're talking about a breed that might be under 10 pounds fully grown, so you don't want to weigh them down with a bulky leash or collar. It can actually cause some problems, even breathing issues for some smaller dogs. So going lightweight is really important. And speaking of those walks, I bet you're just itching to show off that adorable puppy.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone needs a dose of puppy cuteness, right?
Sure. But let's talk about day one, that big day when you bring him home. Less is more, especially for a Havanese.
Less is more. You mean like hold back on throwing the big welcome home puppy party?
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's so tempting. But imagine, right, you're this tiny pup and suddenly, bam, new place, new smells, new people everywhere. It's overwhelming.
Okay, that makes sense. Sensory overload is real, even for humans. So instead of letting them loose to explore the entire house?
Exactly. Start with just one room, their own little home base, a safe space.
And this is where that crate comes in, right? The one we were talking about before. Convince me why a crate is a haven and not, like, puppy prison. Because, I'll be honest, I'm still a little iffy on this whole crate thing.
I get it. It's a common concern, especially with a breed as cuddly as a Havanese. But remember we were talking about them being small and prone to feeling a little overwhelmed. A crate, when it's introduced properly, really taps into their natural instincts. You know, that den instinct.
Oh, like a cozy little den, not a cage.
Exactly. And here's a pro tip. Ask the breeder if they could give you a blanket or maybe a toy that has the scent of their mom or their litter mates on it. That familiar smell can make a world of difference when you're putting them in the crate for the first time. Really helps ease those first night jitters.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Anything to make that transition a little bit smoother, right? So we've got the crate set up, maybe with a little bit of familiar scent in there. What about those first few days? I imagine even with the best prep, it's all about like constant vigilance.
You're spot on. Havanese are smart, but they're still learning, and accidents will happen, especially with those tiny bladders. We're talking potty breaks every 2 hours at a minimum, plus after meals, naps, if they get excited, if they've been playing, anytime there's a shift in their activity, basically.
Wow, so really like setting a timer on my phone?
You got it. Consistency is key here. It's all about creating that routine for them.
Right, because that's what makes them feel safe and secure and understand like what's expected of them.
So we've got potty breaks down. What else should be on the schedule besides cuddling, of course, during this first week? Well, don't forget, all those puppy antics are exhausting. We're talking 18 to 20 hours of sleep a day for these little guys.
Oh, wow. Puppy needs their beauty rest, I guess.
They really do. And when they're not napping or exploring or going to the bathroom, those tiny tummies, they need regular refills, right?
Okay, so nap time, playtime, potty time, and of course, mealtime. How often should we be feeding a Havanese puppy during that first week?
You'll want to aim for 3 to 4 small meals throughout the day and stick with the food that the breeder recommended, at least at first. We're going for consistency here, right, to avoid any tummy troubles, which, let's be real, those can happen pretty easily with a new puppy, new environment, all those changes.
That makes total sense. Now, speaking of new and exciting things, let's talk socialization. How do we introduce our little Havanese to the world without completely overwhelming them? Because it sounds like they might be a little bit, I don't know, sensitive, especially during that first week.
This is so important. A puppy's experiences, especially in that first week, can really have a lasting impact.
Uh-huh.
Especially with a breed like a Havanese, they're very people-oriented. But, like we've been saying, a gradual approach is key.
Okay, so maybe hold off on those puppy play dates and trips to the dog park, at least for now.
Exactly. Keep those first introductions really low-key. So instead of, like, the entire extended family coming over to meet the puppy all at once, maybe just 1 or 2 new people at a time, give your puppy space to approach at their own pace. And remember, we talked about those sensitive ears. Things like the vacuum cleaner, the hair dryer, even if it seems silly, those need to be introduced gradually too, and always with positive reinforcement.
No surprise, vacuum attacks. So it's all about creating those positive associations right from the start.
Exactly. And speaking of positive associations, this is the perfect time to get them used to being handled. Gently touching their paws, looking in their ears, even getting them used to having their mouth touched.
So that they're not totally terrified when they have to go to the vet for the first time. Are there any other, like, often overlooked aspects of socialization that we should be thinking about during this first week?
You know, one that people often forget is sound sensitivity. Havanese can have really sensitive hearing, so even everyday noises, things that we don't even think twice about, can be really overwhelming to a young puppy.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. So really, it's like we're easing them into everything. New sounds, new people, even just being touched. It's all about building their confidence, right?
Yes, and this first week is like you're laying the foundation for a well-adjusted, happy dog. And that foundation also includes, you guessed it, training.
Ah, training time. Okay, so what can we realistically expect to tackle with a brand new puppy in this first week? I mean, I'm excited to get started, but also, like, gotta be realistic here, right?
Remember how we said that Havanese are so smart and they're eager to please? Well, that's great news for training. You can definitely start with the basics, like sit, stay, keep the session short, maybe like 5 minutes at a time. And remember, it's all about positive reinforcement.
Right, so treats, praise, using a happy, encouraging tone of voice. We're speaking their language.
You got it.
But what about when they inevitably make a mistake? Because, I mean, let's be real, puppies are gonna, puppy, right? There are gonna be accidents.
Oh, absolutely. Accidents are 100% part of the process, and it's so important to remember that punishment, especially at this stage, it's just counterproductive. Focus on rewarding the good behavior and redirecting when you need to.
So patience and understanding are key, just like with, I guess, any new relationship, right?
100%. And speaking of navigating those first steps as a new puppy parent, let's talk about some common pitfalls to avoid during this really crucial first week.
All right, hit me with those don't do's. What do we need to watch out for?
So many people, they get so excited, right, that new puppy comes home and it's like they want to shower them with attention, take them everywhere, introduce them to everyone they know.
Oh, yeah, I get it. You want to show off that puppy. Plus, you just want to do all the things with them.
Exactly. But honestly, one of the biggest mistakes that new puppy parents make, especially during that first week, is overstimulation.
Okay, overstimulation. So, like, too much too soon. But why is that so bad? Especially during those first few days.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're suddenly dropped in a foreign country and you don't know the language, the customs, anything. And you're bombarded with all these new sights and sounds and smells.
Yeah, that would be a bit overwhelming.
Exactly. Now shrink yourself down to puppy size and you can see how quickly things can just become too much. And all that extra stimulation, even though it's coming from a good place, it can actually backfire.
So maybe pump the brakes on those puppy play dates and the trips to the park, at least for now.
Exactly. Give them time to adjust first. Now, I know it's not always easy, but another thing to be really mindful of, especially this first week, is alone time.
Okay, yeah, because leaving them alone, even for a few minutes, I imagine that's a recipe for, well, disaster, barking, maybe a little bit of destruction.
It can be.
Mm-hmm.
Havanese are incredibly social dogs. They really crave companionship. And if they're left alone for long periods, especially too soon, it can definitely lead to some separation anxiety down the road.
So how do you find that balance? I mean, as much as we love them, we can't be glued to their side 24/7, but we also don't want to set them up for failure, you know?
Think of it like baby steps. Start with really short absences, maybe even just stepping out of sight for like a minute or two at a time, and then gradually increase that time as they start to get used to being alone. And here's a little trick. When you do leave and when you come back, keep it low key. So no big emotional goodbyes or these over-the-top greetings when you come back.
Oh, that's smart. So we're trying to make it not a big deal, like coming and going is just a normal part of life?
Exactly. You want them to learn that being alone is safe, it's normal, and honestly, it can even be a little bit boring.
A little boring. I love that. So if we had to boil it all down, what would you say are the absolute non-negotiables for making this first week a success with a new Havanese puppy?
3 things:
Mm-hmm.
patience, consistency, and of course, lots and lots of love. Remember, this little puppy, they're going through a huge adjustment and they're relying on you to be their guide to show them the ropes. It's all about really understanding their needs and creating this safe, structured environment where they can thrive.
It's like we're learning a new language together, right? There are going to be some bumps in the road, maybe a few accidents along the way,
Definitely.
but ultimately it's about building that bond.
You said it. And those early efforts you put in, building that trust and understanding, that pays off in spades, believe me.
That's amazing. So to all you new Havanese parents out there, you've got this. Just remember what we talked about, patience and consistency. Those are your superpowers this week. And who knows, you might even learn a thing or two from your new furry friend along the way.
They usually teach us more than we teach them.
So true. All right, that's it for this deep dive into the wonderful world of Havanese puppies. Happy puppy parenting, everyone.
The Havanese HQ podcast is a production of Havanese World and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. Gary Fujioka Sr. is the managing editor and executive producer.